You're listening to the Footy First podcast on TSN 1050. Champions live here.
That's right, folks. That music means one thing on a Saturday. It is time for Footy First here on TSN 1050. Nick McVicar, York United keeper, Niko Giantsopoulos. Niko, how's it going today, man?
I'm not happy, Nick. We always start off the show with basically a weather report, so I'm going to give mine right now.
It's cold.
It is cold. It's snowy. It shouldn't feel like this. It's ridiculous. I'm not happy one bit. That preseason trip cannot come soon enough.
You excited for the preseason trip?
More than ever right now, because I'm still defrosting as I'm sitting in the studio.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cold one out there. This polar vortex is not too kind.
At all.
At all.
It shouldn't.
Yeah, it's not
no
pretty.
place on earth should get as cold as I feel today. I probably sound like the softest Canadian ever, which I might be.
was joking when you walked in. I'm like, you were complaining 2 weeks ago about how cold it was, and I'm like, nah, this is fine. We got this. And now it's actually cold, and you're complaining even more.
I actually don't got this.
You don't have this, no. Back then we did. We were fine back then. Now you have lots to complain about. But
times change fast.
It really does. Today we got a big show, dude. We're going to be joined by Noah Verhoeven later in the show, Atletico Ottawa's newest signing. But first, one of your teammates, Tass Mourdoukoutas. Mourdoukoutas. Did I get it right? I was close.
Perfect.
All right, perfect. So Tass is joining us in studio. How's it going, man?
Good, thank you. I'm happy to be here. I've seen a lot of the show in recent times since I joined. Love what you guys do here. Obviously, Niko, now a roommate of mine, moved in together for this season, so looking forward to more good times and a good show.
That's basically what this episode is. We got to title this Niko's ex and now current roommates, because I lived with Noah last year and now I got Taz.
It's all of Niko's former roommate. This is very interesting. So I have to ask, is he awful as a roommate? Or I know it's recent, but still. It's
very recent. There's still a lot of time for him to stuff it all up, but no.
Not even in phase.
He's good. He's good. He's clean, which is probably the most important thing, to be honest.
When it comes to a roommate, that's very key for sure.
Yeah, I can't deal with grubs. So no, Niko's good.
Okay, that's good to hear. I'm glad to hear it, Niko. I'm proud of you keeping your apartment clean.
My mom is buzzing right now. You hear that, Mom? You raised a clean son.
Well, Taz, we really do appreciate you joining us because you have a very unique perspective on the Canadian Premier League, because prior to joining the league, you actually played in the A-League, a very prominent league. Everyone knows who the A-League if you're a soccer person or a footy person, depending on where you're from. What is it like playing in a league like the A-League and then transferring over to the CPL?
Yeah, look, I'm glad you asked, because I've been asked this question before, and it's something that you don't really have an exact answer for. I think your experience differs. Everyone's experience differs. Coming to a professional league, which it is was the biggest thing for me, and staying in the professional game. It was an opportunity for me to enjoy my football again. So obviously, I'm going to come in with different intentions, especially in the first 6 months. Was just to get as many minutes as I could on the pitch and enjoy my time here, like I said. However, the way the CPL and the A-League kind of, I guess, differ is just simply that of the budget of the A-League is higher. I think in terms of quality you can bring in, marquee signings, things like that, guys that you can give big budget and big portions to. Naturally, in world football, you can bring in better players. That's not to say that the CPL isn't riddled with quality. I think there's guys that perhaps haven't been given enough of an opportunity at the top level. You see top players even like Zats, speaking of roommates. Zats has now gone on to the Polish First Division, and it just goes to show he was one of the premier centre-backs in the league last year, and I really enjoyed playing with him last season. So, he's gone to a league like that, which not many guys in the A-League can pull off, if I'm honest, either. So it goes to show there's quality through it, and the coaching staff are great, especially at York from my experience. It's the only thing I can really comment on, but they make it really easy for all the players, and it's a good dressing room, so that's a big key.
And then how do the leagues compare?
I think the A-League, in terms of technically, is probably a little bit more sound, less mistakes, more on top of each other and more demanding. Like I said, just due to the less quality differential, I think there's a roster of, let's say, 18 players that make the matchday squad. I think, you're really fighting to get into the 18 in the A-League, and there's a lot of quality sitting in the stands every week. Whether they're young players, whether they're older players who are just out of favour, you see it often. So it's a deeper quality of squad because they can afford to. Here, realistically, if you're assigned first team, like older, somewhat experienced player, you're going to make the squad for the most part at most teams in this league. However, it's less of a fight to make the squad. Of course, you have to fight to make the squad. You can't just take the piss. But I think that just the demand even to make the matchday squad in the A-League is far more difficult.
Is it a salary cap league?
It is a salary cap league. Yeah.
And then what's the average age of a player on a A-League roster?
Probably a little bit older than here.
Yeah.
Just for the same reasons that I mentioned earlier. You can bring in players more in their prime, with less to prove, but more games under their belt, and just higher experience, higher quality. So I couldn't give you an estimation as to the average ages of teams. Probably that maybe 26, 27. Sydney FC recently fielded a team. The average age was they had, I think, one player on the field under the age of 30.
Wow.
Which is
That's very odd.
Which is crazy. Yeah.
Did they win?
They versed a team who also had one player on the field that was under 28 or 29 as well. So I believe it was a draw. But well done. But yeah, so that's a prime example of just a game that happened last weekend, and which you'd never see here, I think, in the history of this league.
And then how settled is their academy programs in the A-League? Do all the first teams have academies now built down?
I think every single first team has an academy, if not 99%. But the way it works, I know from my experience at Western Sydney, we have a deep academy program that kind of runs all the way down until juniors, till 8s or 9s, a bit like what someone was explaining to me the other day about Vancouver kind of do, or things like that. They bring in guys at real young ages, develop them, give them the key technique and key attributes that they need to learn in order to grow into senior football. And it's a good process, because I think the kids who go into these academies early versus the kids who train on their own at the park, or just with their dad, or however kick about, I think it gives you real structure. It gives you greater technique from coaches who have either played or understand the game. So it's only beneficial, and I think over time I see the CPL moving into things like that. You look at York with moving into an academy type system and things like that. That can only be beneficial for the growth of the league and football in Canada as well.
Absolutely. In conversation with Tass Mourdoukoutas, York United centre back. And Tass, you mentioned that the Canadian Premier League does tend to be a younger league, and the depth might not be as great as a league like the A-League, which is a league that is well known. It's not like it's a new league either. How impressed have you been with the CPL, the young league as it is in its first couple of seasons? I know you've been here for about a year now. How impressed have you been with the league?
Oh, majorly impressed. I think it surprised me. With all due respect, the league was 3 years old, and when I thought even to come here, I didn't know they even had a professional league here. I think I was a little bit confused with the idea of the 3 Canadian teams within the MLS. That's what I thought was pro football in Canada, which is understandable.
Which is fair, I think.
At 3 years old, you'd have to be real keen football nut to kind of know what the ins and outs of every single pro league in the world. But like I said, pleasantly surprised. And what's impressed me the most, I guess, to answer your question, is the level in which the players can still maintain and play at, although the salaries and things like that are far less of in comparison to the rest of the world, simply put.
I heard a stat, not to interrupt you there, but I heard a stat that basically the level that we're at, if we were in England, the average salary would be around $200K. if we were playing in like
Yeah,
League
that
Two or
doesn't
something
that
like
doesn't that doesn't shock me at all. Like
a
in
top
comparison.
CPL player, I'm saying.
Yeah,
No,
obviously.
that doesn't surprise me at all. But like we mentioned, the game's in its infancy, and the speed in which I think the league's developed and grown into a fully professional, good training basis for the majority of the clubs, and just good performances from a great bunch of players and good deep league. I think in general has a lot of quality. Like an all-star team within the CPL is a really quality team, would match that of any MLS starting side, I think.
What about A-League? A-League All-Stars versus CPL All-Stars. We got to fight?
We got to fight for sure, because like I said, I come here, it's a professional league. You still every single game have to fight tooth and nail to get results. It's not exactly a walk in the park by any means, I think like I said, it'd be a great game. I think something like that. Let's tee it up.
That would be entertaining, honestly, to see the A-League versus CPL All-Stars.
We'll get Taz to make some phone calls.
We'll get some phone calls.
Do what I can.
The other thing that you mentioned was players like Zats making the jump from the CPL to the big European leagues, or the European leagues in general, and not the A-League not really having as many of that jump. Is that, do you think, due to the fact that the CPL is more of a developmental league than the A-League itself? Like, the A-League is the league, whereas the CPL right now, in its infancy, is becoming a developmental league?
Yeah, I think we're going to see more and more of that. Zats is a prime example, one of the most recent examples. He was someone actually that was off contract that got the move, in the off season. We've seen players mid-season, look at Abzi last season at York, get a move to League Two in France. Bustos now. Players like that are high quality players in this league, what you'd call all-stars or first team players in this league, would start at any club. And these are guys that have gone on to bigger and better things, and the goal is, I guess, speaking to people, speaking to even our CEO recently, you want players that are going to leave this league or leave York, any team, and flourish, because it really shows that it's slept on, because no one would really give them a chance. Then you give the off player a chance, the off quality player a chance overseas, and then if he does well and flourishes, this is something that then casts a really good light on the rest of the league. Something that we can then bring more eyes onto the league, and that's only beneficial.
And then you, being an international, you take an international roster spot on any CPL club. What do you feel like your responsibility is when you take that role on a roster?
It's an important role, because there's loads of homegrown players. There's loads of players training with either League One teams or other CPL teams that are off contract or out of contract or contracted but not getting much of an opportunity. So there's guys fighting within Canada to be in this league. It's still very competitive. So to take the place of that of a Canadian, you have to be better than, or a better role model, or show other qualities that are going to enhance the group. Simply put, I think international players are going to come in and be role players and things like that. I don't believe in it. They need to be considered starters to start with. That's why you're bringing them in, and they need to enhance the quality of the side. There's loads of dressing room guys in Canada. Canada's funny. There's guys that are super, everyone's nice here, right? Like, there's just this thing about
DNA.
Canada. Yeah, it's this DNA that they're all just really good guys, but you need that real tough guy that's going to rattle the dressing room, and things like that. And I think this is a common experience from internationals, whether it be South Americans, Australians, European guys that come in. I don't know, they've dealt with more difficult kind of paths through academies or through coaching and through their teams, where the culture is not fully developed here yet. And that's not the fault of any of the people currently working in Canada football or anything like that, but just like we mentioned, the fact that it's such in its infancy that it cannot develop a culture that's really tough on all of its players. It needs to try nurture these players because it's so new.
Yep.
So I think that's, for an international player, you need to enhance the team for the better.
That's very well said. I want to ask more questions about this, but we do have to take a break. On the other side, we are going to be joined by Atletico Ottawa's Noah Verhoeven, recently signed.
Traitor.
Recently signed Atletico Ottawa's Noah Verhoeven. He's going to join us on the other side. You're listening to Footy First here on TSN 1050. Welcome back to Footy First here on TSN 1050. Nick McVicar, Niko Giantsopoulos, along with York United center back Tass Mourdoukoutas. And joining us on the phone now, one of the new signings in the CPL. Well, I guess recent signings, not new, because he's been around the league for a few years. Atletico Ottawa's new signing, Noah Verhoeven, joins us. Noah, how's it going, man?
Yeah, it's going well. Can't complain. I'm happy to be on the show this morning.
So you've been around the league. You've played at Pacific, at York, and now Ottawa. What was it like kind of going through the free agency process and signing with the team that won the regular season last year in Ottawa?
Yeah, I mean, the off-season is always interesting to see moves and where people land. I think when you're a free agent, it's, kind of weighing up certain, pros and cons at different clubs. But I think this year, once I found out I was going to be, leaving York, I think it was clear for me. Like you said, they won the regular season. I saw, how they went from worst to first is what they were calling it, from last to first. And so I think for me it was an easy decision. It was quite clear the club I wanted to go to. And, yeah, I'm glad how everything's worked out so far.
Break down the timeline for us. How did it all work? When did you figure out you weren't coming back to York? And then how quick was it that you knew you were going to be signing with Ottawa?
Yeah, that's the thing about, I think, football in general. Like, people don't realize maybe how quick things happen. So I figured out sometime around December that I wasn't going to be coming back to York for the season. And then, within the next couple of weeks, I got a call and things kind of got sorted out with Ottawa. And yeah, like I said, on my end, as soon as I got the call, I knew that was the opportunity for me, and I knew that was the right, the right place to go from the start. So yeah, things happened really quick.
No, it's Tass, buddy. What's happening?
Yeah, how are you?
Good, bro. It's good to hear from you. I wanted to ask you some serious questions. Haircut soon come. What's the deal? Are we getting rid of the ponytail?
I think right now I'm keeping the man bun.
Keeping it.
I'm open to, it might be a thing. Maybe after Madrid, come back, see where we're at.
Yeah, a little tan in Madrid. Yeah,
I think I'm keeping it for now.
You going to be borrowing Nate's hair ties or what?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully you can spare me some. But yeah, I think last year I got a couple from Mo, so this year I'll get some from Nate.
If Mo gave me anything, I'd keep using it. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
Who knows what powers it would give me?
Score a hat trick that
magic
week.
Touch. Yeah.
No, I want to get into a little bit more serious conversation.
Oh, sorry,
but
Nick.
It's all good. No,
Nick, my bad, bro. Just say it.
No, I love that. I was going to get into that. Well, I have a question at the end that he's going to laugh at too. Don't worry. But you're with your third CPL club. You've seen a great portion of the league, obviously going from Pacific to York and now to Ottawa. What are some of the subtle differences that you've noticed between the clubs? Anything that has really surprised you from the clubs that you've been on?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think having experienced 3 clubs now, I think housing is of course going to be a difference. I think just the way clubs operate day to day is very different. Staff, things like that. But I think for the most part, all the clubs I've been at, to be honest, like we've strived for big things. I mean, at York last year, we got in. We knew we had a good squad and could fight for a title, and things didn't pan out with injuries and that. But same thing at Pacific. We knew we were young, but wanted to fight for the title. I think most squads, it's quite similar in terms of what the mentality. Everybody wants to find a culture, wants to have players with a good mentality. So I think as far as that goes, if you have the mentality and you're willing to work, stuff like that, I think you fit in at most places.
What about structurally, how Ottawa is? I've spoken to a few people now that have either played at the club, even worked at the club, and they always talk about how, no expense is too much. They try to really take care of the players, and the professional atmosphere they create there is second to none. Do you feel that now that you're there for, about a week?
Yeah, already in the short time I've been here, I noticed how professional it is right from the jump. I think, the club is blessed to have, Atletico as owners. It's a crazy opportunity, but I think I noticed it right away how professional it is. And, like I said, there's a lot of staff. Everybody's on the same page. Everybody's involved. The way they do things is very thoughtful. Every move they make, whether it's, bringing a player or, just day-to-day having meals ready, stuff like that. Everything is very thought out, very thoughtful. So I think, they're, like I said, blessed to have that Atletico connection. But, it's been very professional so far.
You said opportunities there, and obviously this offseason, Nate and Ollie Bassett had the opportunity to go train with Liga MX side. As well, the center back there also got a chance to go to Inter Miami's preseason. When you see that and you're a free agent at this point, is that something that draws you to go to a club like that? You see that the players in their system are getting these incredible opportunities, and then you as a free agent, you're like, okay, maybe if I could fit in that system, do well, and then those kind of opportunities will present itself to you?
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely a big appeal to, like you said, a free agent. I think seeing Ollie and Nate go there, as well as Diego, I think it shows the connections that Atletico has, and kind of how their relationships work within the club. And I think that's big for any player, whether a player was here last year, maybe looking to get that opportunity this year, or a guy like me coming in looking to prove myself and get that opportunity as well. So I think it shows the connection. It's massive that it's happened, and I think the league probably needs some more connections like that, because again, I think that's the next step to kind of getting players ready and selling them from this league.
Yeah, no, that's one of the real positives you look at as a York player. You kind of look at the rest of the league. We even spoke last year together. You look at Ottawa and their professionalism and the quality they can bring through, and the potential opportunity there can only be beneficial for you. So I'm proud of you, mate, and I'm looking forward to seeing you this season. Not looking forward to versing you too much quality there, but we'll do our best. But bro, like in saying that, it's I'm sure you're looking forward to the season, and obviously playing with the midfield like Sissoko and Ollie as well. And I think after York, that has to be probably the best midfield in the league. Looking at it.
Yeah, I think
after York
again. Yeah,
because we drastically improved our left-footed midfielder when we got rid of you.
That's funny. Yeah, no, Jeremy's a massive player. I think like Baldy coming in, Elijah, it'll be big. Like obviously we all know what Mo can do. Like that's no secret. But yeah, I think coming here, I'm with the MVP, so I'm happy. I can't complain about that.
Jeez. MVP shout out there. I got a question for you, Noah. How is your role growing in the league? I mean, you've been here in the league, I'm saying, and from this jump. Now you're 5 years older from when you first started in the league. Do you take on a more of a leadership role? You have tons of experience in this league. What's it like now?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like you said, I'm getting older. I'm an experienced player at this point. Yeah. I've been in the league this 5 years, so I think for myself, I'm growing in my own game, and that's something every player will do throughout their career. But I think definitely in more of a leadership role, or what that looks like within the club. I'm not sure, but I think definitely I've noticed that with the experience. There's a lot of young players coming in now. I mean, we have they introduced like the U21 rule, so of course there's always going to be young players in, and I think being a young player in the league myself earlier on in my career, I realized, there's tough times and there's ups and downs, stuff like that. So I think definitely being in the league for so long and seeing those ups and downs and knowing what it's like, I can now help those players.
Love it. In conversation with Noah Verhoeven, Atletico Ottawa's newest signing. And Noah, before we let you go, I got a couple quick questions for you. A little bit more lighthearted than what I was asking before. But first, are you happy that you are returning to the commentator's curse duo of you and Zach with the same last name to confuse every commentator ever?
Yeah, it's hilarious. Everybody, I mean, it's nice. I saw some tweets and, people bringing it up. Verhoeven reunited and, the commentators are going to struggle, this and that. Somebody put a tweet where it was like Thanos collecting the stones and it was like Verhoeven. So I thought that was funny. But
the Spider-Man meme as well.
Yeah, it's the Spider-Man one as well, of course. But yeah, I think for me, it doesn't bother me too much. It's been something our whole life. We actually grew up together.
Yeah.
So we've been around it a lot. So it's not that big a deal, but it's fun.
If commentators get you two mixed up on the field, I don't know. We got a blind guy on the field commentating.
Yeah. I think by looks, then it's it's bad. But if you're, mixing up the pronunciation, then I can understand.
Yeah. And then last, before we let you go, Tass has taken over as Niko's roommate this year. Any advice you can give to him to help him get through this tough time?
This should be good.
No, I actually think Niko's one of my top roommates. I'm not even gonna lie. I think Niko's got he's got a big variety of music. He's a good DJ. I think he gives you your privacy, which is always nice, and I can't complain to him. It's nice having Howie in the apartment as well.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
There we go. Well, hey.
You got a fuzzy friend.
Niko, you're getting glowing recommendations so far today.
Did you expect anything less?
Little bit.
I'd give a good review.
Yeah. E-transfer's coming your way, Noah. Appreciate that. Last question, actually. If you score against us, are you celebrating?
That's always a weird one, isn't it? Especially in the league. The league's still a bit new, so there's no, massive rivalries. Again, there is little ones, but, nothing's, massive yet. So do you celebrate? I don't know. I guess we've seen both, so I haven't really decided yet. But
you're not throwing your hands up in the air and apologizing, are you? Giving it all that?
No,
my bad, guys. Come on.
Yeah.
Club legend status.
Never be my bad, put your hands up that, but maybe just
a fist pump.
No reaction.
Yeah.
No reaction might be cold as well.
Oh, yeah, that's cold. That's actually a cold solo anyway.
The way your career is going, you're not going to be able to celebrate against anyone. 5 clubs in 7 years for you.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like I said, I've played Pacific and York now. Do I just not do anything against either club? So.
This guy's taking off his shirt and studying the corner flag at York Lions Stadium when he scores.
Knee slide on the turf.
It would be better if he scored on you, Niko, and then just turned and just started clapping at you, just to really rub it in.
I would love that.
Give him a little stare down too.
I'd grab his face and I'd kiss him on the forehead.
I don't believe that for a second. I think you're too competitive for that.
Wait and see.
Noah, we really do appreciate you joining us this morning. Good luck the rest of the season.
Yeah, happy to be on. Thank you.
That's Noah Verhoeven, Atletico Ottawa's newest signing. We're going to take another break, guys. On the other side, there's some John Herdman controversy that we got to get into, and we'll get into a little bit more CPL talk. All that and more here on Footy First. Welcome back to Footy First here on TSN 1050. Nick McVicar, York United keeper Niko Giantsopoulos, and joining us today, as mentioned multiple times, but I'm going to mention it again, York United center back Tass Mourdoukoutas. And Tass, we had a great conversation in that first segment. I want to get back into more of the CPL stuff, but I know, Niko, you had a question for him, so I'll tee you up for this one here.
Yeah, I think what fans of the CPL have seen, and even other leagues in general, is sometimes there is an adjustment period for international players. And when they move, whether they're from Europe, South America, wherever they come from, Australia in your case, they move into this new country. The culture's different. Sometimes the language is different. They got to get banking info. What's the process like as an international player when you first land in the new country that you're now living in? And take us through that whole experience. And is it difficult to adjust? Did you find it difficult to adjust? What made it easier? Just kind of speak on all that.
I think naturally, obviously, it differs from person to person, just due to your not only playing experience, your experiences in an English-speaking country. If you don't speak the language, if you've transferred many times to many different teams before, and this is just all run-of-the-mill. For me, I was at Western Sydney for 5 years, and I was in the pro setup for 4 years. So it was my first time not only out of Sydney playing, but at a new club. So, meeting all the players, meeting the coaching staff, kind of getting, like you said, banking info sorted and addresses and immigration and visas and all things like that. They kind of just, you want that done really quickly because it's just a headache that you don't need.
But it can't be done that quickly. I mean, you're here now for about 4 or 5 days, and we still feel like we got to tick off a couple things before you're settled.
100%. So
get a winter coat.
That was the most important thing for this week, especially. I think it's the coldest week ever in my whole life. My nose is still detached from the rest of my face in terms of feeling. But yeah, look, for an international player, like I said, it differs from person to person. I think is a massive plus being an English speaker in this country. I think it's an important thing league-wide for GMs to understand that the players they're bringing in need to be able to assimilate with the rest of the squad. I think as an Australian, it helps. It's kind of a similar type culture, quite easygoing, obviously English-speaking, and many things kind of align in that sense. Whereas you're going to get guys who don't speak the language, who are from little towns in South America, for example. Me being from big Sydney, Australia, it's not too dissimilar to Toronto or Vancouver or other big cities in Canada. So yeah, like I said, it's going to differ. But
talk about the pipeline now that CPL fans are starting to see, the A-League to CPL move. Why is it so prominent? And personally, what I saw from you and Lewis last year, it seems like the guys that are coming from the A-League, they're able to settle just that much quicker. I mean, it was impressive what you and Lewis were able to do because you came in the middle of our season. You were coming from off-season, and it seemed like every single week you were getting better and better, and now you're pretty settled. But it hasn't really been like that for other internationals. Kind of speak on the A-League CPL pipeline.
I think it's an important pipeline just to continue to look at, and not just to get just because these players were in Australia or were in the A-League, but get the right people with the right intentions. Lewis and I were at clubs, big clubs in the A-League, clubs with big financial backing and large budget from their owners. Probably the two top in the league, funnily enough, 2 of the top 3 or 4 in the league. So, there's less of kind of leeway at clubs like that. New coaches come in almost all the time if they're not successful that year, and with that they bring in their own players. So players like myself and Lewis, who are at clubs for 3-4 years, often get just signed, other players signed, and new coaches are bringing in guys that they think are going to enhance the squad. And then when that comes down to it, the owners are going to say, okay, well, why are we bringing him in? Or, well, I like him, I think he's good. So then they give him an opportunity over someone who's already been there. That's just naturally, that's how football works, how life works. Kind of if you take a backing on someone, you're going to try to give them a chance to prove themselves. So there was a lot of that happening each and every year. So Lewis and I, not tooting my own horn, good quality players that are in a tough setup. I think a setup that doesn't, like I said, allow for too much leeway, allow for too much just play for just because you're young or you're from there. I think, of course, I look back and I could have done much better in my own game and things like that to cement my spot. But you can only look forward and look at the positives. I've come here, been given a good opportunity to play regularly, and then that drive and motivation coming in for those reasons has allowed me to settle in a lot faster than perhaps other people who may be taking liberties.
We talk about the pipeline, right, between the A-League and the CPL, and can you kind of talk about how you heard about the league maybe, and what allowed the pipeline to kind of form, you think, in your mind? I know it's a weird question to ask, but how has this pipeline become so prominent as it has been?
Yeah, look, you've obviously seen now Jesse Daly's just signed for Cavs, and he's someone that I played at. He was at Brisbane Roar for a while. A good young lad with a point to prove, and I think there's a big player pool in Australia. I think the players there that are I guess fringe players in their teams, even guys who have played, like I racked up almost 50 games at Western Sydney. Jesse played quite a few games for Brisbane as well. I believe he was in the USL too, funnily enough. But it just goes to show, I think the pipeline's just going to naturally now develop, because I was the first one to come after 3 years.
Right.
But as the league grows, you'll find there's Australians all over the world. There's Australians all throughout Asia. There's a big, deep player pool, and soccer's a big sport there. It's the most played sport in Australia. So naturally, it's just gonna move into leagues that are perhaps in their early stages or at similar level to what they are. So that's just going to naturally occur. It's nothing forced, and I'm glad it has, because it's going to, more and more Australians are going to come every year. I'm sure about that.
That's good to know. That's interesting to hear that. I want to speak about you individually, and it's something that we've spoken off the air before, and kind of, I think on Australians, especially when I spent 3 years over there, I feel like your mentality is a bit different. And, if there's kids listening to this, or, players that are just trying to learn and grow, it's not maybe your fondest memory here at York, but your first game of the season, you kind of get thrown, baptism of fire, starting in a center back against Forge. And
not a bad team.
Not a bad team, exactly. So you're starting, a shot comes in, it deflects off you, and it essentially goes in, and it gets marked down as an own goal. You as a center back, as a player, professional athlete, however you want to call it, what's your mentality like? Like, how are you able to go on and continue to have a good season in the CPL? Because I feel like a lot of players dealing with something like that, and maybe a younger guy, if he makes a mistake when he comes to a new team, whatever it might be, how are you able to kind of just keep your boots on the ground and keep moving forward and, again, progressing well each week?
I appreciate that a lot, you mentioning about, my mentality and things like that, because it's something I take pride on. I think a lot of players need to, I think if you're a younger player listening, understand that football is a big mental game. It's less about just how ripped you are and how many step-overs you can do, but it's more so about your ability to get knocked down and to keep coming back. So for me, the first game, I knew, my back was against the wall. I hadn't played a 90-minute in over 6 weeks. I had no real pre-season leading into just being thrown in. I'm really, when I'm ready to play, I want to play. So there's no excuses. I was buzzing to play 90 minutes against Forge as quick as I can get fit. I would want that. So I was just super excited to come in. I think my experience definitely played a part, like you mentioned, in what happened. Okay, it's a deflection, and knowing that there's so much worse that can be happening than you right now playing the sport you love, with a good group of people and getting a new lease of life, perhaps, So maintaining a positive mentality and a positive idea on what you're here for and your motivation, your purpose. It's more than just that moment, or it's more than just this 90 minutes. You're here for the long term. You're here to grow and develop your career, to change your life path. So there's so much more than just a single moment. If you make a mistake, if you score a goal, people get really ahead of themselves too. I could have scored a double on my debut and think I'm king of the world, but really the next game you got to take it as it comes, and I can get rinsed for 90 minutes and have one of the worst games I've ever played. So like I said, each and every game you take it as it comes, each moment you take it as it comes, and do the best you can.
That's a great mentality to have, and I think the big thing that you just said that young players need to listen to is it's a 90-minute game, one 90-minute moment. Like, there is so many chances that you're going to get. 90 minutes does not define anything, so you have to keep working. That's very well said. Thank you for coming on and saying that, man.
Does anything stick out from that moment in particular of how the team, the club, or maybe at halftime, because it happened in the first half, does anything stick out that you're like, okay, guys are supporting me? Was there a moment like that?
I think
Or not really?
There's nothing that overly sticks out, because for me it's another, unless someone mentions it, I don't even, it's not in the forefront of my head, like unless someone goes, oh, you did, it was actually an own goal in your first game. It's not like a major thing that sits in my mind every single time I train or play, or next time I play Forge. Next time we played Forge, we beat them away, and that just goes to show it's not something that you hold heavy in your head, and you just can't in this sport. And I think that the reaction was great, because Nashi just got me and said, okay, it's unlucky. First of all, I'm not trying to smack it off my leg and in. It was a hard shot, and I could barely see it. We both could barely see it till it was too late, sort of thing. And the boys were all supportive. They knew my qualities. They saw me in training that week, and They saw the drive I had, and that's all that really mattered.
The point I'm trying to make is because sometimes a mistake happens, and right away, especially when a new international player, again,
New player,
in that
period,
situation.
more
Yeah,
than
but
anything.
international even more so because what he said, like,
I get what
he's
you mean,
taking a
but-
spot of
yeah,
a
I get what you
Canadian.
mean.
It's easy to just like go at you, scream at you, but I think trying to be a good teammate in that moment is also important. So
More important.
again,
in my
I think
opinion.
that can be a lesson for kids. Anyone who's listening to the show, it's like sometimes that's the easy way out to just go at someone. It's like, okay, he's on this team. We obviously saw the quality Tass has. Again, it was an important moment. I thought it was something that needed to be pointed out on the
It's
show.
funny because like I had a similar moment growing up, and I remember it very differently from what you're describing, Taz. So like, it really does depend. That one lives in my head because of how people reacted to it,
That's right. I think it's
and that's what I remember. It's,
the importance that everyone places on a
Yeah.
moment will be how much you kind of remember. And I think they quickly swept it under the rug and said you got a second 45 against one of the quality teams. If you keep that in your head, we'll get smashed. You know,
Exactly.
simple.
No, it's so true, and that's why it's important that we have these kind of conversations, right, Niko? Like, this is big for young kids listening.
For sure. But it's crazy because so many times in the professional football world, something like that happens, and that guy might never play again, and then his
Yeah.
career completely takes a turn.
Crazy.
So, again, this is just a point I want to point out.
Yeah. We're going to take another break here, guys. On the other side, we'll get into the Herdman controversy over the past week because that was, if anything, spicy.
Page turning.
Spicy takes. So we'll do that on the other side. You're listening to Footy First here on TSN 1050. Welcome back to Footy First here on TSN 1050. Nick McVicar, Niko Giantsopoulos, and York United center back Tass Mourdoukoutas. Big news this week, boys, that kind of shocked the Canadian footy landscape. John Herdman was almost out the door, and we were all very confused as to what was happening. There was reports coming out that he had agreed to a deal with New Zealand's men's team to be their coach.
Because obviously he's from New Zealand. He has New Zealand background.
No, he's English.
But he coached in New Zealand?
He coached the women's
New Zealand.
women's
Sorry,
team
sorry,
before joining Canada's women's team.
I'm sure he has some connections there.
He definitely has like connections there because he was there for 3 or 4 years with the women's team. But like, this just came out of nowhere. All of a sudden, he had agreed to terms, and everyone kind of lost their mind, and rightfully so.
Rumor, though, essentially, that he wasn't really out the door.
I know, but
These are all-
that was what the article said, was that he had agreed to terms, and everyone lost their mind. And then it comes out, well, no, he was in conversation. Like, people had approached him.
The story unraveled
I know.
slowly. And we're very fortunate that our show came on a Saturday, and it wasn't that day, because we might just be spewing off and misinformation.
But yeah, it was really odd. It kind of shook everybody in the Canadian footy landscape. And Niko, you and me were going back and forth.
What was your take on it, Nick, when you first read it? Initial thought, you wake up, because essentially that's when the first news
Well, I was
happened.
up earlier because I was working. But
Early bird here, right? 5
I
a.m.
wish-
club.
I wish-
Cold
I
shower,
wish I
cold
wasn't.
plunge, all
I
that.
wish I wasn't. Let's be
Wim
fair.
Hof.
What was your initial take when you read it?
I was like, my first initial take was why?
Yeah.
Because Canada's on the upswing right now. New Zealand's kind of stagnant. I know they have a good situation in the Oceanic Confederation, but like, why?
New Zealand was essentially where Canada was before Herdman came in.
Exactly. So I didn't understand why he would want to go there. Like, if it was like a bigger nation, like if he took over Belgium, right? Like, I kind of understand that more. But
Right.
because it was New Zealand, I was like, I don't get this at all.
And then as the story continued to unravel, what did we learn?
That whoever leaked that information was lying
Mm-hmm.
more than anything. That Canada has his back. And I think he's earned that from what he did with the women's team and what he's done with the men's team so far, that the Soccer Canada has his back right now.
Do you think because of all that was going on, there was a reason there wasn't an international window for Canada and there wasn't a camp?
Potentially. We talked about that before, and they just announced that they're going to announce the women's She Believes Cup roster in the next few days, but they're not going to bring them together until 5 days before the first game, and I'm just like, I don't understand this.
You're still fuming.
I'm still so confused by this. But anyways, it was just a shock more than anything how it all unfolded.
Do you think there was any play of, obviously he's in middle of negotiations right now, do you think kind of maybe not him directly, but the news was leaked in a way to kind of say, hey, listen, I could be out the door. I could be leaving.
Potentially.
Give me the number that I want. Give me the setup that I want. Whatever he was asking, kind of give it to me. Or, I have other options.
Potentially. And I mean...
It's speculation a little bit.
It's speculation. And if that is the case, then, smart tactical move. But it's also putting a huge risk. Like, let's say Canada says, well, okay, you already have a deal in place with another team. Bye. Have fun. We're not going to deal with that. We don't like the backstabbing. Like... Bye.
You never know really to what extent that the rumor to the actual, whether it's concrete or not, whether it gets taken to, So obviously reports could come out that it's basically signed with New Zealand or whatever, but then again that could just be people stirring the pot. It could be his agent stirring the pot. You never know. It's all speculation here at the end of the day until there's a signed contract and he's holding the jersey in his hand or he's shaking hands with the New Zealand FA or something like that, then nothing's official. So
exactly,
you never know.
I mean, it would be a loss depending on who they would bring in, obviously. But right out of the gate, this guy, we've talked about it before, how good he is at motivating. And on the other side, we were talking about if something bad happens on the field, how important it is for players and coaches to motivate a team. Like, it would be a loss for Canada to have that. And I mean, you guys can both speak on it. When a coach has that ability to give that motivational speech or get the boys ready to go, it's huge. It's a game changer.
Yeah, it seems like the group is definitely all in his system. They're about his culture, and they're playing for him. So again, when I saw that he was stepping away at first, I'm like, okay, that's going to be a big hole to fill. I wonder how CSAs kind of take this. But again, kudos to John. First name basis, John. When he comes out, and then he kind of puts an end to the rumors. Say, no, I'm here. 2026. We have so much more to move forward to.
Well,
and he's excited
more.
About it.
He admitted, he's like, I was approached by New Zealand, but I never signed anything. I really didn't have any conversations. Like, I don't know where this agreed to terms came from.
You would be shocked though if a coach has had that much success in the last 4 years didn't have offers.
Exactly. Like, I knew he was going to get offers, especially with how he managed to coach, especially in that first game against Belgium in the World Cup. Like, that alone was going to garner some interest from teams.
I think leading into a home World Cup, what a platform for him. Why would you give that up?
And
I think no matter what the budget, difference or what the salary difference or things like that, I think you have to look at it as a huge opportunity for him. A generation of Canadian footballers coming through that are really impressing me. Young guys that are going to really lead this team as well as some good older heads that hopefully will be around still in a few years' time to help drive Canada. And I think it's really beneficial, and he needs to stay on board.
For sure. That'll do it for our show here. Taz, we really appreciate you joining us today, man. Great insight onto what an international player is coming into the CPL.
No, thanks for having me. I really, really enjoyed the talk and everything, and looking forward to more TSN.
Beautiful. Love it. We'll have you back soon, I'm sure.
Yep.
Make sure you follow us on all our social accounts at Footy First Show on Twitter and Instagram. We'll have more content coming up. That'll do it for us here. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.